lost people in the armed services in particular.
Hmm.
And we know that days like yesterday are not particularly great while everyone else is enjoying themselves, having, barbecue and enjoying the beaches and things like that. For many of you, it is also a time to pause and remember who's not with you on this moment. And I take that serious. I've evolved over the years about how I understand service because, I talk a lot of stuff. I do. I talk a lot of stuff, and I take that for granted sometimes. Like, but it's, we witnessed in Myanmar, for example, just how quickly you can lose that right. Was that Myanmar earlier this last year that they had the coup?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, yeah, and one of the first things they did, they took away the right for people to speak.
Hmm.
So all critical speech of the coup was like restricted, and I mean, people fought for the right for us to talk junk in the morning. So shout out to them. They
That's right.
died for it. So appreciate that. And we don't take it for granted. So we're going to use that today. How was your Memorial Day, bro?
It was I was chill, man. I went to the movies. That was really about it. Um,
What?
yeah,
What'd you
yeah.
go see?
King Kong and Godzilla.
Oh, did you see it before that?
No, I didn't. We actually went to see it in the movie theater itself. So I am, trying to reemerge in society, and we're both fully vaccinated, my wife and I, and so we went to the movies, and I'm trying to get a handle on, getting back out in the world. So, I wanted some popcorn and a big diet cherry Coke, and we went back to the movies. But I mean, the rest of the weekend, we actually binge watched a couple of shows. The Upshaws, which is actually out on Netflix, which is produced by Wanda Sykes, who is from the Philly, lives in the Philly area. She and Mike Epps and Regina King, not Regina King, what was Tootsie? I can't remember her name. Kim Fields are in that. It's an all black comedy, and that was really good. And then, because I'm into the Marvel kind of things, there's a show on Netflix called Ragnarok. So we binge watched the second season of Ragnarok. So it was cool.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let
So
me
that's what I did all weekend. I mean, church stuff and watching TV that I haven't watched. Actually, because we do the show, I don't really watch TV much anymore, other than catch the news. So because I'm in bed by the time most of the shows are coming on in the evening.
well, man, it's so interesting. So I went to the movies a little while ago. All right, so YouTube is up. That's great. Facebook probably won't be up, so knowing our Facebook folk, they'll find us. Yep, I see it already, and sorry for that double sound coming in. But yeah, so Facebook folk, tell a neighbor, touch your neighbor, tell your neighbor, we're on YouTube. But yes, I went to the movies recently.
Hmm.
I actually went on a weekday,
Okay.
and
Oh,
like
so
the
funny
first,
there.
where it was like five people in the theater, and I was like, this is kind of cool. But I saw Wrath of Man.
Oh, we saw Wrath of Man. What was that? Friday?
Oh,
Yeah, we saw Wrath of Man. That was good with Jason Statham.
brother, that is the definition of the Wrath of Man. That was you don't want to incur Jason Statham's wrath. Let me just say that was like an incredible film. But also, I've been binge watching too. For the Marvel heads out there, I did the same thing. I've been actually doing something different. I've gone back and checked out the MCU in chronological order. They offer that to you
Oh
on
wow.
Disney Plus.
Oh wow.
So whenever I can get it in, I watch like a half an hour here and just keep building on it. But when you do that, it is like really amazing.
How
You
many
pick
uh
up
how many films in are you?
like 8 or 9.
Okay, because it's
I'm
like
almost
20
halfway there.
plus films.
Yeah, I'm almost halfway there. So it's just I've been doing it over some period of time. I just haven't said anything, but it's actually really a good way to kind of like rewatch it, and it's like, oh wow, that's kind of deep stuff you pick up. So this morning we're gonna have on a 620 a guest. She's actually on my preaching staff at Mother Bethel. She moved to the area as a seminary student at in the area, and but man, she's also the daughter of a survivor of Greenwood,
Wow.
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Wow.
So she told me she's a survivor of a daughter. She's the daughter of a survivor, and she is also has other relatives, obviously, who were also impacted. His mother, her grandmother, also survived, and her aunt also survived. So she'll be on. She is in Tulsa, obviously, for the 100-year anniversary. It's amazing how many people I know who are directly impacted. And I would probably imagine, I probably have family too, because my grandfather moved from Oklahoma to the West Coast during the 1940s, during the Great Migration. I tried to get him to talk on camera once about his experience growing up in the South. This was when I was like 20, 21, didn't know much. And threw the camera in his face, one of those big VCR cameras. And I said, tell me about growing up in the South. And the one story he relayed to me was in his home in Oklahoma, the Klan came to their house.
Oh.
And surrounded the house, rode around in horses and breaking out windows, throwing rocks, talking about, come out of here, come out. And what did he, oh my God, I can't remember. Oh, terrapins. Come out, you little terrapins. That was what they called black folk, like a black terrapin.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, okay, I wasn't really expecting that story. I was thinking more like, I don't know. But that was his story of Oklahoma. And so, no surprise, our entire family on my father's side, the entire family left Oklahoma in the 1940s, and most settled in Colorado Springs. But my grandfather said, nah, man, I ain't stopping until I hit water. He ain't stopped till he got to Oakland. He couldn't travel any further west.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So he was at the Pacific Ocean. I guess he said, okay, I'm far enough away from these folk now.
Yeah, they were right outside of Oklahoma City from what I found on census stuff. But you know, I mean, Oklahoma was not that big, and so I would imagine that if I looked hard enough, that I probably have family that were also directly impacted. But I don't know. But Reverend Marcia, who's calling in, when I look at her, I always say she looks just like people in my family.
Y'all could be related. Did you do the DNA test?
No, I've never even done my own, but I'm just saying it's all right. So my audio's cutting in and out. But yeah, you know, I've not done the DNA test, but I probably should.
Yeah, you should. I've done one. I'm probably going to do another one. And then there's one out there just for African American folk to kind of help you figure out more deeply where you are in the diaspora. But yeah, I've got a couple of those. And as a matter of fact, my cousin, who is in Virginia, she's from Philly. My first cousin, but she moved down to D.C. recently, the DMV. She's doing it, and she's sending me all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I knew that already. I knew that already. So I knew that, you know, and she's finding all this information. And actually, from her parents' side, it looks like we might have a common relative on both sides of our family, so we're trying to figure that out. So it's actually kind of funny.
Who's that? Somebody on YouTube. I don't know who all of our regular Facebook listeners. They have different names on YouTube. Somebody says, I always knew that Tyler was an Okie.
You talk about it all the time. That's not anything new.
I talk more about my mother's side.
You talking about from being from Oklahoma. I'm thinking about
Oak.
But,
right. No, we're from being an Okie from being Oakland. Yeah.
Yes. I got you. Okay.
Yeah. And so let's check this out. So let me just tell you, this is how some New Yorker decided to celebrate the 100-year anniversary of the massacre, or remember it, I should say. So New York City has a Black Wall Street gallery that they've had up for some time. And on yesterday, which was the beginning of what would become the Tulsa massacre, which happened over a long period of time, some vandals, which they're now saying is a hate crime, deliberately and intentionally, according to the gallery, rolled up and defaced the signage. Now, they said no other business on the street was hit, and a security guard from the Nike store across the street witnessed it. And so they said that the person went up. So here's the gallery. It just has like in very nice block letters at the bottom of the window. It says Black Wall Street Gallery.
Wow.
So what does the person do? They smeared a white substance over all the letters so you couldn't read it. Somebody literally tried to whitewash Black history on the day of the 100th anniversary.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. That just doesn't surprise me. Nothing surprises me right now. You know, I don't know if you heard. I mean, I don't know. We can maybe talk about this a little later in the show, but in Texas on Sunday night, the Democratic delegation had to walk out of the Texas legislature because they were trying to pass Gregorian, you know, voting rights legislation. Right? It's open season on Black folk again, and folk figuring that they can just say and do whatever they want to do. It is just ridiculous right now. And so it doesn't surprise me that that happened. It really doesn't, because it's you know, like you said, they're whitewashing history. That's pretty much what folk are continually wanting to do. They want to whitewash elections. They want to whitewash history. They want to whitewash education. They want to whitewash working rules. They want to do whatever's going to make white people feel safe and comfortable. And it's just not. It's not even safe and comfortable for them, because in doing so, they're wiping out even what could potentially be helpful segments of their history. Just like I was reading this morning in WHYY that the Peter Wentz homestead in Worcester, Pennsylvania, is being designated as a Underground Railroad site. And it's in Montgomery County. Actually, it's not that far from where my parents live. I've driven past it numerous times, a big house sitting up on the hill, and didn't realize the impact that it had in the Underground Railroad. But, you know, there'll be folk that'll be upset about the fact that it's going to be designated as Underground Railroad site. You know, it's stuff like that that is going to, you know, that we're just in a very, I want to say it's a very unique time in human history, but it's not unique. It's repetitive and it's irritating, to say the least.
Yep. So that's how you celebrate and remember Tulsa, the massacre in New York City. Apparently, you try to whitewash it away. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, can you?
No.
Anyway, we got to take a quick break. It's 6:21. Apparently, like I said, again, a lot of our tech this morning is still on vacation. Our Facebook feed is on vacation. And a lot of our own tech is like having issues. It wants a 4-day holiday, apparently, instead of a 3. So while we're on break, we'll still try to work some of this stuff out. Glad to see so many of you joining us on YouTube. And if you don't see your friends and family, let them know that's where you are as well. We'll be right back on the other side. And we're going to talk to Reverend Marcia Williams, who is now of Philadelphia, but is a native of Oklahoma. And she is there as a part of the remembrance. And we're going to hear from her directly from what's happening on the ground. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
More than joint replacement, it's total joint care. Einstein Orthopedics offers minimally invasive, same-day procedures like anterior hip replacement and knee replacement surgery. Our board-certified surgeons and dedicated team will give you personalized care every step of the way. From your first appointment to surgery to post-procedure follow-up care, Einstein Orthopedics offers everything you need to get moving again. Visit einstein.edu/totaljoint to learn more.
Are you looking for a job? WURD has got you covered. We just launched a brand new job portal featuring jobs from some of Philadelphia's leading companies and art organizations. Visit the portal right now to see jobs from WURD Radio, the Kimmel Center, Her Foods, Always Best Care, and more. Apply today. Visit our livelihood website at wordworks.com. That's WURDworks.com and click jobs. You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent Black media.
Welcome back to the Power Hour. This is Dwayne Royster along with Mark Kelly Tyler. We're here Monday through Fridays from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to bring you the latest in news, happenings around Philadelphia, and, of course, our opinions. And we have plenty of them. Appreciate all of you that are checking us out and listening in this morning. We are on YouTube, although I did put a link from the YouTube over on Facebook to both my page and to Reverend Tyler's page, so you might be able to check it out there as well. But we are appreciating you and thanking you for all your support of the Power Hour. So, Reverend Tyler, take it away.
Yeah, well, listen, folks, as we have said, I mean, you know, today is a day that has truly lived in infamy. and we are here today in spite of people's attempts to erase the history. I mean, it's so typical, the New York story, isn't it? It's like January 6th.
Hmm.
What happened January 6th? Nothing. They were just tourists. No,
That's whitewashing history. It's
but five,
revisionist history.
but five people got killed, and I saw like thousands of people with Trump signs like bashing the doors in. What was that about? No, you misunderstand.
They were just extending their First Amendment rights to come and share with their political leaders their opinions.
They wanted to see their congressperson. That's all. Some of them wanted to kill their congressperson, but let's not let facts.
And the vice president. Let's not. Yeah, right. And the vice president.
And stop and overturn a duly elected president-elect. All of that. And so yesterday in New York City, in case you missed it, the signage on the Black Wall Street art gallery, and I'm going to have to get up and see that while it's up as well. The exhibit, someone intentionally smeared some white substance over the letter so you could not read it. Again, because if you can't read it, hey, it never happened. But we know better, and so we're not going to let moments like this pass, because it's not just about what happened then, but it is also how it impacts us today and into the future. So there is a huge commemoration going on. President Joe Biden will be there, as I understand, today, which is totally different than last year, where the former president was there and kind of brought a traveling racist mob with him during the same period of time, which was to add injury to insult to injury rather. And but this year it's totally different, and so there must be a different mood. But let's not speculate. We've got somebody on the ground who can tell us directly. Reverend Marcia Williams is on the preaching staff at the historic Mother Bethel AME Church here in Philadelphia. Came this way by way of seminary, and we are glad that she is on. She's back home, soaking in all of the history, and it must be something. Reverend Marcia, welcome to the program with Bishop Royster and myself.
Good morning, Pastor. How are you? And actually, I'm not back home yet.
Oh, I thought you were already out there. Well, thank you for getting up and being with us this morning. So you have been in touch. You've been in touch with folk back home. So what's going on there?
A lot. Everything that you've seen on TV and more from my perspective, being with the people, talking with the people, celebrating with the people, remembering with the people. It is a time of tears and triumph, and it's just been a wonderful experience for me as a descendant. As you know, as we spoke, my father was a survivor, as well as his mother and his aunt. And so whereas it was whitewashed, I didn't realize it was whitewashed for the rest of the world, because I've known about it since I was small. Didn't know the total, utter devastation, but I knew, as I got older, he would reveal things to me that, were more appropriate for my age to know. So it's been just a wonderful time. There have been symposiums on race and reconciliation, the John Hope Franklin, which is annually done, and so this year was particularly wonderful. There have been street celebrations. There has been spoken word. There have been gospel sound stages. There have been jazz sound stations. There have been vendors, and this is up and down the business section right now of Greenwood. However, I might add that this is is gentrified. For those of you who need to know, it is gentrified. There are maybe 3 black-owned businesses along that area. So.
Wow. So first of all, your father. Let's not just like run past that. Your father is a survivor. How old was he? Your grandmother was also a survivor. Kind of like, what was their age and their experience on those 2 or 3 days?
He was 16, and what we know is that, and so she was. 30, around that, a very, very young mother at that. And what we know is that she recalls, my grandmother, that is, recalls when there was, if you've been following the sequence of things, the men went down to protect the young man at the courthouse who, from any harm, which we know how that worked. But there was kind of a stillness later that night, and people kind of thought things were okay. But my grandmother recalls having looked out her window and seen one of her friends being shot in the back and falling to the ground and screaming and being shot. And I was able to visit the site, if you are paying attention, where they are doing archaeological digs. They've discovered some mass graves. And so that was very touching for me as I stood outside the fence and called the woman's name, saying, "Are you there?" Because, of course, my grandmother never got to know what happened to her. So my father says then that at such point when the house was engulfed in flames, that all he could think to do was to go in and grab his mother's favorite rocking chair, which is not just an ordinary rocking chair. It's a beautifully large, handcrafted mahogany rocking chair, which I have in storage to this day. So, and they ran. They were not, to my knowledge, put in internment camps. They ran. They saw, but they lost everything. My aunt had a cafe, a small grocery store, and a boarding house for the black men who did labor work, who, of course, had nowhere to stay. They couldn't stay in white establishments. So they lost everything.
Wow, Bishop.
Reverend, thanks for being here with us. Appreciate that. One of the things that happened last week that we understood was the cancellation of our special program because there was a call for reparations for the survivors of Black Wall Street. Has that been a part of the conversation while you've been there?
Oh, yeah, very much so. Publicly whispered, discussed as we stand in line. It's very much been part of the conversation. And, of course, I can only speculate, so I won't do that on the air. But there are some. What we say, Houston, there's a problem. We have a problem. Something smells rotten in Denmark. So, yeah.
So, well, let me ask you, because to that point, you just said, like your aunt, for example, had a cafe. That's a business.
Aunt,
she had a great aunt. Okay, yes, right, your great aunt. So she had a cafe, she had a boarding home, she had a grocery store. Were there any, did she ever receive any compensation for those things that were lost from anybody during that era?
No, and I did take pictures and file footage, as I will be able to share when I return. Project that I'm working on. There were millions of dollars of unpaid claims because the insurance companies fixed it, and we understand that it's probably similar today, that if there is a so-called riot, there can be no more claims paid, and so that's why it was deemed and termed a riot, and so there were no claims paid. There were millions of dollars put in, but of course none claimed, none paid or acknowledged.
I mean, can you imagine the billions of dollars that would be owed to families right now if reparations? I mean, this is part of the problem, right? They recognize that if you put it into the 2021 money, they would at least owe hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more than that, to the families. And then you compound interest and all those things on top of it. I certainly imagine that they would be afraid to really have a serious reparations conversation about this.
Absolutely. And if you follow, Tiffany Cross was on site a couple of 3 days ago, I guess. I've been here since Thursday. And she discussed that with the mayor, and his stance had been that, he didn't understand that wouldn't be workable, because to do reparations would be paying people for money that comes from the city tax coffers, and you tried to double it around, saying you're paying people for money they're paying for. And there was a historian that she had with her who had done some research and asked them that how would that be that the mayor's family had accumulated wealth that he benefited from after all these years, and he said, no, that was not true. And the historian had found that his family since 1666, I believe, had owned over 900 enslaved Africans. So
Oh, wow.
there was that wealth, and so it was quite compelling. And then I'm telling you what I saw on TV, and then all of a sudden, click, that interview was stopped, and she came back and gave further commentary. So there it is, right there.
Wow, that's listen, I mean, that's amazing. We're talking to Marcia Williams, and she is a direct descendant. I mean, the fact that your father was 16 at the time of the Tulsa massacre, that is, I mean, at 16, when something happens to you at that age, you're old enough to not just remember it, but I have to imagine it shaped the rest of his life. Are there ways that you think that it may have impacted him that maybe he didn't even see that you can see now looking back on it?
He was a very, very introspective type person, and he never shared it with me until I happened to ask a pointed. I knew from relatives that, quote unquote, the white folks ran the black people out of Greenwood, because I had been to Greenwood before. I'd been to Vernon Church many years prior to now, when I would go visit. I grew up in Missouri, in Kansas City, and so my dad, who later subsequently married my mom, they were part of the Great Migration, and they got as far as Kansas City. And so that's where I grew up. But I had visited Tulsa and Greenwood when I go visit relatives from time to time. And so all I knew basically was that the white folk ran the black folk out. It didn't used to be like this. But it wasn't until much later that he began to relate the real horror. I didn't know about mass graves. I didn't know about burning. When I happened to ask him, Daddy, how come we don't have pictures of you when you were growing up little? I have some of my mom. And he said they all burnt up in the fire. And I said, what fire? And then he told me about it and never spoke of it again, and in detail. And so to answer your question, he was a very introspective person. He was a quiet type person who worked hard to provide for my mother and I. But I came along so much later than that. And so I think his outlet for that was, talking with his mother and his aunt behind closed doors when I would go visit them in Kansas City. They did a job of trying to not, as you've seen that the people didn't talk about it, not trying to bring it into my world, because that was something that, as bad as things were then and as bad as they were growing up in segregated, quote-unquote, not unsegregated, but segregated Kansas City, Missouri, those things were things he just did not want to bring, to light in the family. So I can't say that growing up I knew any of that, that I could see any of that impact, because you just don't know what to look for. But fortunately, we had a wonderful family life. He was very active in civic and community affairs. He was the one in the neighborhood who contacted Congress people and went to events and, took notes and brought back information and that kind of thing. So that was his contribution.
Wow. Well, Reverend Marcia,
I'll tell you, member of the AME Church, as well as a lifelong member of the AME Church in Kansas City and Bethel AME. So.
Well, of course, I tell Royster this all the time. Everybody's AME.
Everybody's AME. I hear it all outside of the show. I hear it on the show. I hear it.
I don't make this stuff up, okay? I don't do that. It's just every time it's like literally every story comes back to, and they were AME. I think, it's not my fault. Hey, so Reverend Marcia, listen, we really appreciate you getting up and sharing with us on this morning. Any final thought that you have that, you just think people ought to know as it relates to this story, and especially even going forward?
That it is real, okay? This is not something that, people should say, oh, well, that was then and this is now. It's real. I heard you speaking earlier about how someone whitewashed a mural in New York. Well, that happened when they painted a Black Lives Matter mural on the streets on Greenwood last year when people were doing that. And the city came along and repaved it. You know, they didn't wait for vandals to do that. They repaved it the next day, paved it over. Once again, it didn't whitewash it. It wasn't there. So understand that this is real, and we have hope, but our hopes lie in reality.
All right, thank you. It's Reverend Marcia Williams. She is a direct descendant of survivors of the massacre in Tulsa and Greenwood. And thank you again for sharing with us. This has been very helpful, I'm sure, for our listeners as well. And we're certainly praying for you all and your family and those who continue to carry this story. Thank you, Reverend Marcia.
You're welcome, Pastor. See you soon. Bye-bye.
All right.
Wow.
Boy. And meanwhile, I mean, so like contemporary story that goes right along with this, the Republican Senate blocks a bipartisan commission to investigate January 6th from coming into existence.
Yep.
Even though 5 Republicans were killed that day.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody who got killed voted for Trump, even the cop.
Mm-hmm.
Officer Sitnick was a Trump supporter, and Trump supporters killed him.
Yes, and his girlfriend was actually out talking to the Republican senators this past week about voting for this bill, and they all pretty much, the ones she talked to didn't do it.
And they said, nah, we don't, because you know what they always say? We just need to move on. Royster, we know something tragic happened on January 6th. We know something tragic happened on May 31st, 1921. We know something tragic happened from, 1619 to 1865.
No,
we know. Well, I mean, I was going to like Jim Crow.
I got you.
on. Mm-hmm. But rehashing it, that's just, can we just move on? Can we just move on? Unless your name is Hillary Clinton and it was Benghazi, then we got to do committees for that.
You know,
what a bunch of hypocrites.
Yeah, I mean, I'll save some comments when we get back.
All right.
Yeah.
We need a break. I mean, thank you, Reverend Marcia.
That was deep.
Thank you for all of that and for bringing that story live. But again, we are living it now in the fact that people continue to want to deny and suppress the truth of these stories. And for our survivors of these stories, I know it's painful to tell it, but you got to tell it because the story matters. We'll be right back on the other side of the break. This is the Power Hour.
If you're struggling with alcohol or drugs, Recovery Centers of America can help. RCA's local inpatient and outpatient programs are founded on science and delivered with heart from an expert caring team who will inspire and guide you every step of the way. Call 1-888-RECOVERY now to speak with a treatment advisor. At RCA, you'll be in a community that builds connections and fosters support from peers and RCA's team of medical professionals and recovery support specialists. At RCA's state-of-the-art campuses in Devon, PA and Mays Landing, New Jersey, they tailor your treatment to you and also offer specialized programs for patients with history of trauma, for patients who have achieved recovery but are experiencing a relapse, for young adults 50 years and older, a confidential program for first responders and military, and a faith-based program. RCA answers the phone and accepts patients 24/7. And because it's local and in-network with insurance providers, treatment is affordable and accessible. Don't wait. Call 1-888-RECOVERY today.
The Black Words Book Club. Word Radio's conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The next book for June is Taught by Women, Poems as Resistance Language by Hakeem Adabudi. Be sure to listen live as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it, Tuesday, June 8th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for Word members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. Now, a traffic update on Word Radio.
Good morning. This report sponsored by Mattress Firm. Some volume getting busy out there this morning. Southbound 95, Commandant Bridge jamming through construction. Then again, light Allegheny through Girard as that builds. Northbound side looks good. Westbound Vine 8th out the Broad. Slow again, Parkway through the Schuylkill Expressway. Westbound Schuylkill Broad to pass Young, little slow through that work zone again. City out to Belmont beginning to build. Eastbound not bad yet. Pennsylvania Turnpike westbound. Before Willow Grove, still an accident there. Mile marker 344.5. Looking at 55 northbound, getting heavy depth into 42 now this morning. It's Mattress Firm's best Memorial Day sale ever. For a limited time, save up to $500 on top-rated mattress brands like Silly and Sleepy's. Plus, get a free adjustable base with your $6.99 mattress purchase. For more traffic information, log on to SIGAlert.com. Jim Bachman with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Now, a word weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Crystal Cly.
Good morning. Today, temperatures will warm up to right around normal for this time of year. 79 is the high we're expecting, but unfortunately, not as much sunshine as we saw yesterday. Mostly cloudy conditions right on through the afternoon. Then tonight, cloudy with a forecast low of 60 degrees. Your Wednesday will get up to a high of 80. Again, a cloudy day. And then scattered showers and storms return on Thursday. I'm NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Crystal Cly.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Welcome back to the Power Hour. This is Dwayne Royster along with Mark Kelly Tyler. We just finished a conversation with the Reverend Marcia Williams, who is on the preaching staff at Mother Bethel AME Church, but also a direct descendant of survivors of the Tulsa Massacre. She was currently in Tulsa, Oklahoma, having conversation with us about what's happening on the ground there and sharing some history with us as well. It was wow, it was kind of deep. The hard part of that is imagining that could just as easily happen again today.
Mm-hmm. Just
as easily happen again today.
Oh, well, it almost did, January 6th.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that could have, I continue to just, think about how perilously close we came to that being unleashed all over this country and it looking like the red summer of 1919. There's an interesting read about 1919 because Tulsa was 1921, mm-hmm. But as people keep pointing out, look, I mean, Tulsa was just like one of many, mm-hmm. Right? That's right. There were like tons of like Tulsas. Unfortunately, in 1919 there were race riots, and again, so she said the reason they characterized it as a riot is because for insurance purposes, the insurance companies don't have to pay out for a riot. Mm-hmm. Massacre, that's a little different.
Right.
We cover massacre. We don't cover riots. Unfortunately, you suffered at the hands of a riot. So I don't even think we should even characterize them as race riots of 1919. These were racially motivated attacks against black people. And I mean, in that summer, there were, again, these type of attacks everywhere. And January 6th of 2021 was, I mean, we were like so very close. Man.
Well, I mean, there's the attack that occurred on January 6th, yeah. And then there's the attacks that are occurring in state houses and legislatures across the country right now that are using, the law as a vehicle to incite overthrow of the government, right? Because as Lincoln said, it's the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And when a handful of legislatures across the nation attempt to overthrow and prevent democracy from existing, preventing people from access to the vote, access to the ballot box, it is an attempt in many ways to silence, to deafen, and to keep people in second-class status as we try to prevent them from being able to get access to the ballot box. In Texas, in Georgia, in other states across the country that are trying to pass similar legislation right now. And our ability to access the ballot box also will directly impact our economic being as well. being able to elect officials that will move to create more opportunities for African Americans to open businesses, access to education, access to resources to pay for education. All those things are critical and absolutely essential for our community to be able to survive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, boy, it feels like Groundhog Day. Remember that movie, Bill Murray?
Yes.
Every morning he wakes up, it's the exact same thing, no matter what he does.
Exact same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, wait a minute, I thought I just saw this story. You sure it's not the same story? No, it's the same story.
Same story every single day.
Yeah, wait, that was, our parents and grandparents like, no, that happened to us. We're like, no, it happened to us too.
Yep.
Groundhog Day. And so the question is, when will we stop it from happening so that our children are reading about things like Tulsa and it feels like history as opposed to us where it feels like, didn't that just happen?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, people wonder why, black gun ownership is going up.
Yep.
It's soaring through the roof.
Well, it's not just black ownership. I mean, everybody's paranoid right now. So guns are actually, you cannot find a new gun right now.
Well, I mean, I get that, but typically these stories, like you said, like when Obama became president, white folk ran out and got guns galore. Like somehow that still doesn't quite make sense. It's like what's Obama going to do? What did you really think he was going to do? Right?
That was funny though. That was like, so like what? See, what happened was gun owners thought that he was going to do like they would do if they had become president in that moment. And they didn't realize he was reasonable and educated and intelligent, and he was trying to build America, not trying to tear it apart.
Well, not to mention, I mean, look, listen, the numbers themselves don't bear out any kind of support for like some full out black offensive against white folk. It doesn't make sense numerically. Right. There's just not enough people here. So it's not going to happen. And so this idea of black folk just somehow raising up and just like trying to take over your country by arms, chill out. Just chill. You know what I mean? Like, just calm down. The paranoia comes from, as you just said, from your own feelings of, because I don't know the stories of the massacre on the main line where all the black people rode from Philly and like killed up all the white people, took a city on the main line.
Didn't happen.
Do you know such a story?
No, sir.
Do you know of any story like that?
No, sir.
Where black armed people just ran into a town in the South and just massacred all the white people and wrote their history away, and now they're thriving in that place 100 years later. Tell me that story.
No, sir. Can't tell you because it didn't happen.
So then why? That's what I'm saying. It's like the fear and the paranoia is not rooted in any actual reality. Mm-hmm. It is rooted in mythology and pathology, and it discounts the fact that the only people who have done what you keep thinking is going to happen is your people. It's kind of like, in relationships, the person always accusing the person of cheating is the person who's always doing all the cheating. You ever notice that?
I've heard, yes. I've seen it.
Like, I think you're going to do something. And the other person's like, why? I don't know. I don't trust you. Like, why? Because that's usually where it's rooted in. It's like your own guilt makes you think that the other person is doing what you always do. And this idea that somehow black folk are going to do this to white people, it's like there is no, in 400 years, the only time you hear of this is in self-defense. It is in trying to throw chains and shackles off of slavery. Well, it's in trying to defend your community from people coming in, or we have guns in our church and our museum. They're there to remind us that people like to burn down black churches historically and apparently in the present.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of guns, Wanda made this point that they said that about as many as 1/6 of the rioters not being armed because of D.C. gun laws. And she said D.C. gun laws save democracy. D.C. has the strictest gun laws of any government entity in the country. It's stricter than New Jersey, stricter than most other states. D.C. gun laws are crazy strict.
God, that is so true.
And well, it has to be. I mean, that's the seat of our government, right? To prevent what happened on January 6th from happening.
That is so true. I mean, if they weren't afraid of getting caught with a gun rolling up into the Capitol, they'd still be sitting there.
Some of them were still armed, though. Some of them were still armed.
Well, they were.
It's illegal in D.C.
But again, in Michigan, they rolled into the state capitol with AR-15s.
With the firearms, looking for the governor.
Bro, if they could roll up like that in D.C., they'd still be sitting in Pelosi's seat.
Absolutely.
Talking about Nancy who? What's my man's name? Richard? Nancy who?
And I'm pretty sure when they streamed into the Capitol, they didn't go to the security monitors that are there. I just want to, as a person who worked for years in Washington, D.C. and worked on Capitol Hill, they have security metal detectors everywhere. You can't get into a building in D.C. without going through metal detectors. So I'm assuming they just knocked the metal detectors over and didn't even bother going through them.
My Lord.
Of course, being sarcastic, but you know.
Like, hey, did you go through security? Excuse me, we're tourists. Remember, let's behave. Hey, listen.
Right. Let's go back and check the cameras, see if they went through the metal detectors.
Well, listen, hopefully our Facebook will be up on tomorrow, and glad to see so many of you found us on YouTube this morning. Love your comments, although we didn't get a chance to shout them out. And hopefully tomorrow we get a chance to talk about an incredible story of Eric Riddick, who is free from jail after 29 years, although he had to still do a plea deal for a lesser charge. But his attorneys are going to fight that as well. Shout out to you, Eric, and your family. If you all are listening, congratulations. Welcome home. And we also have to talk about the Plainview Project. These cops are trying to get their jobs back after posting things on social media like refugees should starve to death. Of course, that's who you want protecting you.
Lord have mercy. All right, everybody. That's our show for today. We deeply appreciate you checking us out on YouTube, Facebook, on the air, on the app, listening to us on Alexa. Alexa, turn on WURD Radio. We really appreciate you. Thank you, Dr. Tyler, for everything you do. Thank you, Quasar, for holding down the boards. We appreciate you. Stay tuned now for Wake Up with WURD with Solomon Jones. And family, do us a favor, especially this day, as we remember the Tulsa Massacre. Go out, change the damn world, because if you don't, nobody else will. Peace. With my face turned to the sun.